President Donald Trump's position is straightforward. He wants only those deals that are truly good. But the real question is, what exactly does good mean? December 2025, U.S. Trade Representative James Greer delivered an explosive explanation of why Trump believes he has the power to blow up the entire North American trade system. No improvements, no amendments, just tearing the agreement apart. Trump wants to pull the United States completely out of the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA, a deal he himself signed during his first term, and force Canada and Mexico to accept new terms on his timetable. But is there a major flaw in Trump's strategy? Are Canada and Mexico really just sitting quietly with folded hands? In today's special report, we explore how Trump's own creation is now turning into a weapon against him. Before we dive deeper, if you enjoy this kind of geopolitical and economic analysis, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Stay with us for more stories shaping global power. Let's go back to 2017 and 2018. During Trump's first presidency, Canada and Mexico accepted a historically unusual condition, the Sunset Clause. Under Article 34.7 of the agreement, 6 years after implementation, in 2026, all three countries must meet for a review. If everyone agrees, the agreement extends to 2042. But if even one country disagrees, the deal shifts to annual reviews and will expire in 2036. This was the brainchild of Trump's former trade representative, Robert Lighthizer. He believed that permanent agreements give other countries too much security and reduce U.S. leverage, so he designed a system where Washington could repeatedly extract new concessions by constantly threatening to walk away. A natural question arises: why did Canada and Mexico agree to such a self-destructive clause? The simple answer: they had no choice. Trump had threatened to cancel NAFTA outright with no alternative in place. Their hope was that by 2026, either Trump would no longer be in office or U.S. trade policy would soften, but they were wrong on both counts. Trump is back, and his trade policy is even tougher. He now sees the July 2026 review not just as a trade negotiation moment, but a powerful leverage point to pressure the two neighbors on a wide range of issues. But here's where the story turns. Canada and Mexico are not quietly waiting for Trump's hammer to fall. While Trump threatens to dismantle 30 years of economic integration and push for separate bilateral deals, the two countries are quietly rewriting their own playbook. No loud confrontations, just quiet coordination, deeper bilateral cooperation, and long-term strategic planning. They are preparing for July 2026 in a way that could surprise Trump. The moment he sees as his greatest point of leverage is exactly the moment Canada and Mexico are working to shift beyond his control. The July 2026 review meeting was originally meant to be a friendly check-in, a routine, almost ceremonial gathering. But with Donald Trump's return, it has transformed into a battlefield. Trump's message is blunt: either accept all my demands, or I will tear apart the entire North American trade structure. But is the situation really as Trump imagines? Are Canada and Mexico helpless beggars? Absolutely not. For months, both countries have been quietly building an alternative strategy that directly challenges American dominance. Last December, Trump's trade representative, James Greer, revealed the administration's real card. He said, "Our relationship with Canada is not the same as our relationship with Mexico." In reality, Trump wants to employ a classic divide-and-conquer strategy. His goal is to negotiate separate bilateral deals with each country so they cannot support each other, allowing the United States to extract maximum concessions. And Trump's demands go far beyond trade. He wants Canada to dramatically increase its defense spending. He wants both countries to help solve America's border and immigration crisis. He wants Mexico to completely shut the door on Chinese investment. The most dangerous tools in Trump's arsenal are the Sunset Clause in Article 32.2. By invoking national security, Trump imposed 25% tariffs in February 2025. That means CUSMA may remain on paper, but he can destroy its real value anytime he chooses by imposing new tariffs. Essentially, he has taken the agreement hostage. But Trump's plan had one massive leak. He assumed Canada and Mexico would fight each other. Instead, the opposite happened. September 2025, 9 months before the review deadline, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum signed a historic strategic partnership agreement. This is not just a symbolic document, it is a practical blueprint for reducing dependence on the United States. What exactly are they doing? Direct supply chains. Mexico is preparing to ship goods to Asia through Canada's Pacific ports, completely bypassing U.S. territory. Joint production under CPTPP. They're expanding cooperative manufacturing so that even without CUSMA, both countries can remain competitive in global markets. A massive trade mission. In February 2026, Canada is launching the largest trade mission in its history to Mexico. Hundreds of companies and experts from 6 key industries will participate. The message is clear. Before negotiations even begin in July 2026, Canada and Mexico want to demonstrate that they have real alternatives outside the U.S. market. When Dominic LeBlanc visited Mexico in December, the message he delivered was unmistakable. They will not bow to Trump's hostage politics. So when Trump sits at the negotiating table in July 2026, he may discover something he never expected. The very countries he hoped to control may already have moved far beyond his reach. In the face of Trump's divide-and-conquer strategy, Canada and Mexico have built a powerful united front. Mexico's Economy Secretary Marcelo Ebrard and Canada's Ambassador Cameron McKay have made it clear they need each other now more than ever. And this is not just diplomatic rhetoric. Mexico has openly stated that it will not negotiate without Canada at the table. Trump hoped to isolate the two neighbors and pressure them individually, but instead he is facing a coordinated bloc that has spent months aligning their positions. But the biggest shock for Trump has come from inside the United States itself. At a congressional hearing in Washington in December 2025, nearly 150 American industry leaders testified. Their message was unanimous: CUSMA is indispensable. The National Association of Manufacturers warned that tearing up the agreement would be an economic catastrophe. The Automotive Council argued that North America's supply chains cannot simply be restructured. Agricultural groups stress that Canada and Mexico are essential markets for American farmers. These groups form the very core of the Republican base. When Trump realizes that his own voters and business allies strongly support the deal, his threats to withdraw become much harder to sustain. Trump's core assumption has always been that Canada and Mexico need the American market far more than the United States needs them. But the numbers tell a very different story. To keep American cities warm, the U.S. relies on Canadian energy. For its technology industries, it needs Canada's critical minerals. To remain competitive in global markets, it needs Mexico's manufacturing power. If CUSMA collapses, American consumers could face massive cost increases, fueling even more inflation. And if Trump does rip up the agreement, Canada and Mexico will not collapse. Both are members of the CPTPP, giving them preferential trade access to 11 Asia-Pacific economies. Canada is strengthening ties with Europe and Asia. Mexico has become the top alternative to China for global companies looking to diversify their production networks. In other words, both countries have already built survival pathways outside CUSMA. But can American industry survive without it? That is the question now reshaping the 2026 negotiations. July 1, 2026. This is the day the three countries must decide whether to extend the agreement for another 16 years. Trump believes he holds all the leverage, but in reality, if he refuses renewal, he will be held responsible for plunging U.S. industries into deep uncertainty. So who really holds the power?
Trump's threats or the two neighbors' prepared alternatives? Will Trump ultimately set aside his ego and sign the renewal, or is North America heading toward a dangerous economic crisis? Only time will reveal the answer.
Donald Trump believed his plan was flawless. Use the July 2026 deadline to corner Canada and Mexico. He assumed that with the threat of tariffs and the looming possibility of terminating the agreement, he could rewrite the future of North American trade with the stroke of a pen. But he overlooked one fundamental truth: a threat only works when the other side has no alternatives. Canada and Mexico are not sitting idly by, waiting for July to arrive. They are no longer desperate beggars. Ports and infrastructure. Mexico is developing routes to ship goods to Asia directly through Canada's Pacific ports. This means their exports can avoid U.S. territory entirely. A joint front. The two countries now move as a unit. Trump's divide-and-conquer strategy has collapsed as Canada and Mexico align their positions on every key issue. The CPTPP shield. Even if Trump pulls out of CUSMA, both nations retain preferential access to 11 Asia-Pacific markets through the CPTPP. Their escape hatch is already built. Meanwhile, resistance is growing inside Trump's own country. U.S. negotiators now see that the annual review system is undermining America's leverage, not Canada's or Mexico's. American industries are suffering from long-term uncertainty. If Trump truly cancels CUSMA, he will face unprecedented backlash from the business community and Republican members of Congress. Simply put, the result could be an economic shock worse than the tariff chaos of 2025, and it would hit the United States first. This is the real turning point of the conflict. Trump thought he would dictate the rules, but Canada and Mexico have spent months quietly restructuring their supply chains and deepening their partnership, changing the dynamics of the negotiation table entirely. When Canada launches the largest trade mission in its history and builds direct ties with hundreds of Mexican companies, those economic connections will no longer require Washington's permission. This is not a theoretical plan, it is a new economic reality. July 1st, 2026. The deadline is approaching fast. Trump may soon realize that his leverage is far weaker than he imagined. That July table was supposed to be Trump's arena of dominance, but Canada and Mexico are proving not only that they can survive, they can thrive outside the system Trump created. So who will have the last laugh in this high-stakes trade drama? Will Trump's aggressive policies ultimately become a boomerang that hits America itself? What does your analysis say? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed deep political and economic analysis like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.